What is up everyone, Baird here and bringing guys another part of the Gears of War Ascendance novel. So before I start here, I just wanted to state the fact that the second act of the novel is pretty damn huge, and it would take a really long video for me to talk about the whole thing. And essentially the act is split up in two parts, essentially the perspective of JD and Dell and the perspective of Kait and Marcus. So I'm actually going to make two videos. Essentially think of it as like a Resident Evil type of thing, where scenario A, scenario B, and essentially there are two stories that happen at the same time, and I'm just going to make a video on each one. So with today's video I'm going to be talking actually about Marcus and Kait, essentially what happens right after the end of Act 1 leading into the end of Act 2, and then in the next video I'll essentially do the other scenario with JD and Dell, and then both videos will essentially end together at the middle, and then we'll continue on with Act 3. So to start off guys, what happens next after the end of Act 1? If you guys remember in the last video, I mentioned the fact that JD and Dal were in fact pardoned from any type of crime and reinstated as COG soldiers. After that happened, JD and Kait did in fact talk about it, and Kait was very unhappy about it with both of them, because she made a very valid point. She mentions the fact that Jin is going to keep them on a leash and make them do things that they don't want to. And she doesn't trust Jin, so that was one of the main reasons why she left. But anyway, so as we go on into the next part here, Marcus and Kait are making their way through Old Ephira. And the one thing that was quite interesting is as they're going through it, they can kind of tell that someone is coming towards them. They can actually kind of sense someone in the shadows. So they kind of take positions, really smart way to go about it. Kait kind of stands out in the open while in front of a doorway that they can see that this person is hiding in. And Marcus takes cover right next to the entryway and waits for the person to come out. The person does, and the person is wearing very raggedy clothes. Essentially it looks like a stranded holding a knife rushing at Kait, and the second that he comes out the doorway, Marcus hits him with the butt of his lancer, knocking him out. And it turns out that these people are the descendants of the stranded. So they're not people that actually lived during the effects of the Hammer of Dawn when it hit and everything. No, these are people that were born after that and grew up basically being stranded. So these descendants of the stranded have a new name called Pickers. And Pickers, while not entirely aggressive, will go after you if they feel like they can get something off of you. So they obviously saw Kait and wearing armor and holding a gun and stuff, so he wanted to get something from her, get some type of weapon, try to scavenge anything he could. So he went after her and Marcus knocked him out. But the thing that was really interesting that Marcus basically told Kait is that even though they are crazy people, they try to steal, they even try to kill sometimes, he doesn't really blame them based off of their life situation, and he would never want to kill one of them. So that's why he just knocked the guy out. He didn't actually kill the guy. So they make their way after that, and they get to a airport, and that's essentially the new plan. Before, Kait was going to go all by herself and make her way to Fort Umson where she lives to try to find the kids. But Marcus had an idea. Well, how about we convince Baird to let us get into the planes here, and it'll just take us a lot quicker. So that's essentially what they're doing. They make it to this small airport that has a Condor. A Condor is one of those really big planes that would drop the DBs, and so they essentially want to hitch a ride on it so they can get to the area a lot quicker. The thing that was really cool is Baird does exactly what he did, like I mentioned in the last video, where he kind of causes a form of maintenance to happen, quote unquote maintenance, that essentially turns all the robots and everything off and gives them a brief window of time to sneak around. The second this happens, they run and they go up the ramp of the Condor. But this is the part that gets really kind of scary. As they're running, Marcus gets quite a bit ahead of her and he runs up the ramp. But everything is turning back on, and the ramp is starting to go up, and Kait's kind of far behind Marcus. Marcus kind of got a big lead on her, so she's running full force trying to make it to the ramp, and she jumps and grabs the ramp, and now the Condor is going up, and she's basically hanging off the ramp as the Condor is going higher and higher and higher and higher, up to a point of no return that if she lets go, she's gonna die. But as this is happening, the ramp is still going up. So eventually it's going to get to the point where it closes and cut off her fingers and make her fall. So she's freaking out. She doesn't know what to do. And at the last second, she's just freaking out like, where the hell's Marcus? What's going on? He basically almost looked like he abandoned her basically for a second there. And out of nowhere, the ramp closes. She lets go. but she doesn't fall. She just starts dangling there. She's just hanging, and she's just like really confused, like what's going on, and she's like freaking out. As soon as this happens, a ramp opens up again, and Marcus is there to grab her and pull her in, and then the ramp closes again and they're safe. Turns out that as they were running and she jumped and grabbed the ramp, Marcus found a small like strap with one of those little S hook things. I don't know how to describe it. It's basically a little hook that looks like the letter S, and he hooked it to the back of her armor and hooked it to a part of the plane, so when the ramp closed on her, she wouldn't fall. So Marcus basically saved her ass right there. She was guaranteed to die at that point, and luckily he pulled an extremely smart move to save her life. After this, they're just basically chilling in the Condor because they don't got anything else to do. The thing that's crazy is even though they're in a plane that has a bunch of DBs and everything, they're kind of just hanging there. They're turned off, so they don't have to worry about anything about being found out. So that's a really good thing. Marcus and Kait kind of just find 2 seats opposite from each other and just kind of sit and wait. Marcus falls asleep and Kait gets bored, so she starts running around the inside of the Condor and finds a M bar, so she takes it. And as they're waiting, eventually they decide, you know what, we're getting too close to Fort Umson. They don't want to be there when the plane lands, because the second that the Condor lands, all the DBs are going to spring to life and then they're going to be found out. So they make a new plan, a new idea, essentially to jump out of the plane with parachutes and land before the Condor does, and then make their way up the mountain to Fort Umson. So as they get there, this was kind of the funny part, as they're getting close to Fort Umson, Marcus opens the door and basically says, let's, we're gonna have to jump out and, use the parachutes. And he teaches Kait, he tells her how to put on the parachute, teaches her how to use it, emergency, line, all that stuff. And the funny part is that when it comes to the point for them to jump, she's like, who goes first? And he's like, you. And he just pushes her out the freaking plane. Like, he just throws her out of the freaking plane, just shoves her, and she's falling and screaming. She's freaking out. So she pulls the line. Luckily, everything's fine. The parachute opens. Marcus jumps out after her, and they both land safely. Marcus kind of gets scolded by Kait. She's like, hey, you pushed me out, like, no warning. And he's like, yeah, I kind of had to. She's like, I could have handled it myself. He's like, yeah, that's what everyone says, until they actually look out the door and they get scared, and we don't have time to waste the landing point. So he just shoved her out so they could make sure to land where they needed to. So now this is really interesting. After this point, they land, they're making their way up to the area, trying to get to the village, but before they can even get to Fort Upson, they have to make it up a mountain to another village, and then essentially ride a lift down and make their path through the area to make it to Fort Upson. But before they even get to the first part, to even get to the lift, they're making their way through the forests, and then they actually see a bunch of dead swarm. And they notice that there was several explosions in the area, and there's even like pieces of metal and string around. So it looks like someone actually tampered and made like C4 type things where the enemy would trip bombs and then die. And that's essentially what happened. The swarm were making their way through the area and they got exploded. As she's investigating the area and seeing, there's a lot of things around that are caught on fire, she could kind of see something in the distance standing behind the flame. She could kind of see it through the fire. And as she looks down the path, she can see someone standing there. So she thinks it might be one of the kids or something, but she realizes that the person or thing standing there is much too tall to be one of the kids. And as she looks down the path, she can see that it is actually a scion grinning at her with a very menacing face, just staring directly at her. And she pulls out her M bar to shoot it, and as she's shooting it, getting ready to shoot, she kind of starts having memories of the speaker, the scion that took her mother, and she starts kind of getting a little like freaked out, but she knows the speaker's dead. She killed him. She stomped on his head. He's dead. And as she's charging this M bar ready to shoot, something lands on her shoulder, forcing her to shoot the bullet randomly, and she realizes that it was actually a pouncer that jumped on her. But luckily she was able to roll away. She pulls out the M bar again to try to shoot it, but as she starts charging again, the pouncer lunges right at her, and she jumps to her side, and as she's rolling to her side, her legs are extended. The pouncer crashes right into her legs, making her do this weird flipping motion, and she lands hard. Out of breath, she stands up again, trying to shoot the M bar Once again, and it's right when she's charging it, she can see a second pouncer coming out of the trees, getting ready to throw its spikes. The second it throws its spikes, she lunges out of the way and lands perfectly right behind a wooden barrel, and all she can hear is the sound of the spikes hitting it. So she's getting ready to fight again, and she can see the pouncers, and right when she's about to fight again, luckily Marcus comes out of nowhere and essentially uses his chainsaw and like scoops one up while the blade is on, cutting it open, blood spraying everywhere, and slams the first one into the second one, and they're both toppled on each other, kind of freaking out, and he just starts unloading his lancer right on top of them, killing both the pouncers. So they're gone, so it's good, right? She's sitting there like in relief. Out of nowhere, the Scion pulls the barrel from her and is towering over her, just grinning this horrible smiley face at her. She's freaking out, staring up at it at the ground. He lifts his fist and goes down full force at her head, but luckily she rolls out of the way and pulls out the M-bar yet again and starts charging it. One shot right in its gut, still coming at her with that smiley face. Charges the second shot, boom, right in its throat. Still smiling, still coming at her. She says screw it, charges a third shot, shoots it right through its mouth, and the bullet comes right to the back of its head, killing the Scion, and it topples over. She actually has to roll out of the way or it would have landed on top of her. Both shaken, but okay, they both make their way to the area that they're going to. Turns out that they're actually going to South Village, the village that Mackenzie and Eli were training at before the swarm came and took everyone at Fort Umson. So they're checking on South Village because they want to see if everything's okay, if maybe even the kids are there. But unfortunately, when they get to South Village, it's the same thing like Fort Umson. Everyone is gone, and they don't know exactly what happened yet. So they make their way to the main hall of South Village because that's where everyone would have went. That's where everyone would have evacuated to. But when they get there, they see that it's just a destroyed mess, and no one is to be found. Kait hears something and she thinks it might be one of the kids, so she starts calling out to them, asking Eli, Mackenzie, is that you? It's me, Kait Diaz. But to no avail, and it actually turns out that the thing making the noise inside the main hall is in fact a cat. And the really crazy part was Marcus was actually going to start making his way through the main hall, and at the last second Kait grabs him by his collar and pulls him back, and she tells him to wait, and he's like, what is it? He's like, what the hell? She literally just yanked him super hard. Turns out that he was about to walk into one of those planted bombs that someone has placed. And if he walked into it, it basically would have exploded, sprayed shrapnel everywhere, and killed everybody. So that was the thing that was really crazy. It would have killed her, would have killed Marcus. It would have been really crazy. But luckily, Kait saw it the last second. And so they realize, you know what? No one's here. We gotta move on. So they start making their way back to another part of the village, and they find the lifts that they're going to go down on. They're usually used for fishing purposes or whichever, but they also can be used to scale the mountain. They're about to get into the lifts when out of nowhere Marcus screams down, and he pushes Kait out of the way, and it turns out that they nearly dodged a drop shot that landed right in the middle of them, and it sent both of them flying. But luckily none of them were severely injured. Dazed, but okay. And as they can see in the distance in front of the main hall of South Village, they can see a Scion standing there holding a drop shot. As they were getting ready to fight, another pouncer appears and lunges at Marcus. Marcus luckily dives out of the way, and its spikes barely just scrapes the back of his armor, but he's okay. And it tries again to lunge at him, and I swear this part sounds really funny to me in the book. Essentially, it lunges at him, Marcus dodges, it lands against one of the winches that are holding the platform. The winch breaks and the pouncer just basically falls off the side of the cliff. But as it's falling, it makes one last attempt and throws spikes out. Marcus dives yet again, and they hit the ground near him, and unfortunately one of them actually stabs him right in his leg, and he's in pain and he pulls it out, but when he pulls it out there's a lot of blood, so he's injured, but he's still fighting. As they're getting ready to fight the Scion, another pouncer appears and goes after Kait this time around. And I swear, this is so funny. It's like the pouncers are freaking idiots in this book or something. It jumps on a wooden cart that Kait just took cover on not too long ago and getting its spikes ready to shoot at her. But luckily, out of nowhere, the cart breaks under the weight of the pouncer and it just kind of spazzes and shoots the spikes everywhere. Luckily, no one gets hit by them. And then Kait just pulls out the ambar, shoots it straight through its head, and it's dead. So the pouncers are gone. Scion's still there shooting drop shot at it. Shot a second one and completely missed, rolled down the side of the mountain. Shot a third one, still missed, so they're okay. And as they're getting ready to fight the Scion, it roars, and when it roars, 2 drones come out full speed, just rushing at them. No weapons, just full rushing at them, full speed. But they actually both go towards Kait, actually. And Kait pulls out the M-bar, charges a shot, shoots, and it hits one of the drones right in its leg, ripping its leg off. So it's laying there in agony without a leg, while the other one rushes at her. She dodges it and goes straight and runs past the Scion, everyone, into the hall, the main hall. And she actually gets past the bomb that she saw and hides under the main dining table, taking out the M-bar, aiming right back at the doorway where the Scion and the drone will rush through eventually. She's waiting for them, but as she's waiting for them, she sees the Scion come in first, and instead of rushing in like she thought it would, it's actually coming in really slow and really cautious, to her surprise. And it turns out that the Scion is very smart. It can actually see the bomb, and she was trying to trick it, make it rush into the bomb so it can explode and kill him, but luckily for it and unluckily for her, it was smart, and it could see the tiny little trip line that would cause the bomb to go off. And it starts looking at it, and it starts making its way over it. But this is the part that's freaking hilarious. As it's about to go over, the drone rushes in full speed, throwing caution to the wind. The Scion stretches his arm out to try to grab it, like, hey, stop! It's too late. The drone rushes right into the trip line. Bomb explodes, and the dust is everywhere. She can't see. Once the dust settles, she sees that the drone is dead, but the Scion is nowhere to be found. So she's kind of confused. Where did the Scion go? Did it get obliterated, or is it still around? She goes outside to check on Marcus, and she sees that Marcus was actually killing another pouncer and actually a snatcher that I guess came out of nowhere, and he single-handedly killed the snatcher. So that was actually pretty damn cool. Kind of a little bit of a contrast to the game where he got kidnapped by one. I know he got hit by a nade, but still, it feels really cool knowing that he took on a snatcher single-handedly and destroyed it. Anyways, they finally make their way to the platform that's going to lower them to help them make their way to Fort Umson. As they're riding down, they see something falling, and it lands right into the platform, and it's the Scion coming back for round 2. So they're freaking out because they're in a really small space on this tiny platform with a big 8-foot Scion in their face. Kait tries to rush it and tries to shoot it, but right when she goes to go after it, the Scion turns around and backhands her in the face with her fist, knocking her down, knocking the shit out of her. She's just sitting there dazed like, whoa. And as she's getting her bearings and getting back up, she can see Marcus literally squaring up bare-fisted with the Scion trying to fight it. And not even Marcus Phoenix can fight a Scion though. It's way too big, way too powerful, and he's losing his bearings against this monster. At the last second, Kait makes a desperate attempt and rushes at the Scion from behind, hitting it with her shoulder, and it knocks the Scion over, but she starts falling over, and she would have fell to her death, but luckily Marcus grabs her ankle at the last second, pulling her back on the platform. So they're okay, and the Scion is gone. And everything seems okay at first. They're just making their way down, but out of nowhere they can feel the platform start freaking out, kind of swaying, and they look up and they can see that juvies are near the rope that is lowering it down, presumably either cutting it or trying to come down the rope as well. It's kind of vague on how the book described it. But anyways, to counter this, they know that they cannot jump though, because they're extremely high and the only thing below them is crazy rapids and rocks. So if they jump, they're gonna die. So they gotta think of a way, and Kait luckily at the last second thinks, we gotta make our way to the side of the mountain. We gotta get our bearings and climb on a cliff or something. So they start standing on opposite ends of the platform and start swaying their body weight to make it go towards the edge of the mountain. And as they're doing this, they can see that they're kind of getting towards a cliffside to try to make a jump for it, but they're still not quite close enough. And at the last second, when it looks like all is lost, they can see somebody standing on the cliffside reaching their hand out. So she reaches for the hand and grabs it, and it turns out that the hand is Oscar's. Oscar is still alive, and he pulls Kait over to him, and then they eventually pull Marcus over as well. So all is well, they're alive, and they're back with Oscar. So after they kind of, have their reunion, Kait and Oscar are really happy to see each other, and she starts crying, and she's just like, oh my god, I thought you were dead, and she's so happy to see him. They make their way through the caves of this mountain, presumably trying to get back to Fort Umson to find the kids, but it turns out that the kids are in fact with Oscar. Oscar found them, I guess, while on his way back to Fort Umson. I guess the kids were making their way back as well, and now they've been together this whole time since, and he helped them, take care of themselves, and it turns out that the kids are pretty damn smart and pretty damn formidable. The boy, Eli, is a really good shot with the rifle, and the girl, Mackenzie, is really good at creating bombs. She's the one that is creating all these trip bombs and killing all the swarm. And it's pretty crazy how they're actually really efficient at such a young age. Kait tells Oscar that they want to take the kids back to New Ephyra so they can be safe, but Oscar is really against it. He doesn't like the cog. And the thing that was really kind of funny too is that he finally meets Marcus Phoenix, and they kind of look at each other like, oh, hi, kind of thing. And Marcus is like, do I know you? Like, he actually kind of recognizes Oscar for some reason. And Oscar tells him, I don't think so. If we ever met, it was probably on the battlefield, but we never been on a team together or anything. So they never really actually knew each other. They maybe knew of each other, but that is all. So they never really went too into that type of aspect. But the one thing that I really want to mention is during the moment when Kait and Oscar were talking about taking the kids, the conversation kind of drifted to another thing where they started talking about Kait's amulet. And it turned out that Oscar is in fact the brother of Kait's father. So he's uncle from the father's side. He's not related to Reyna. I kind of already knew this, but it feels kind of good to finally get a confirmation. I was always a little confused on that. And he stated that when he met Reyna for the first time, when Reyna's father, Oscar's brother, introduced him to her, she was already wearing the amulet. So it's been something that's been with her pretty much the whole time, and most likely something that Reyna had her entire life up to the point of giving it to Kait. And so I just really wanted to bring up that really interesting fact right there. And then later they decide that they need to make their way to a ammo cache that the kids actually found inside one of the mountains, one of the side of the mountains. I guess a cave, I guess, is a better word for it. And they make their way through the caves to get to this specific one to find the ammo. But the thing that's crazy, the kids, like I stated, are formidable, and they go through some really weird way to do it. Essentially, Eli leads them through a big cave, and they make their way through a side of the mountain that has a huge waterfall. Essentially, they have to use this rope that they have to swing themselves past the water and grab themselves and pull themselves up the mountain just to get to that specific cave. Everyone goes except Oscar and Mackenzie, that stays back to keep points. And also because they're too scared to ride the rope up the mountain. But anyways, they get inside the cave, and Marcus finds a lancer and ammo and everything. They all get stashed up. And as they're, looking through this cave and grabbing everything they need, they kind of sit there and discuss what they're going to do next, and they realize that they need to get back to the caves to defend them up until the point where they decide where they want to go, because they don't want to hide in this specific cave where they have everything on the very weird, awkward side of the mountain, because if they get pushed back in there, they're really stuck. So they got to make their way back to the other caves where everything's a lot more wide, they have a lot more exits, and they're just going to take what they need back to it. But at the last second, as they're discussing this, they hear a bomb go off, one of Mackenzie's bombs, in the far distance, and that signifies that the swarm are in fact already in the caves. And that is where Marcus and Kait's story ends for Act 2. So we're going to continue this in Act 3, but there is actually a few things I want to talk about real fast before I end the video. First thing I want to talk about is one thing that they mentioned throughout this act is there's these really weird creatures, these birds called snapjaws, really big birds that are extremely dangerous. And there's a little story stating that one of the kids went to these birds' nests to try to steal an egg, and the kid never came back. So that's how dangerous these birds are, and the reason why I'm bringing them up is because of the fact that it was stated that these birds' nests lay on the opposite side of the mountain near where they are, and they could go through this way to, maybe escape as an easier path away from the swarm, but then they would have to deal with the snapjaws. So they're kind of not really thinking that's a good idea. And they're kind of thinking of maybe they can somehow trick the swarm into going to this nest and getting killed by the snapjaws, but they never really kind of went about that yet, so I don't know if that's even going to be a thing later in the novel, but I just thought I'd bring it up. And in the next part, last part of this act, it's really interesting. It's actually a part with Baird, and I'm going to talk about it in this video because of the fact that it's really ties with Marcus and Kait, essentially. So what happens after all this, as this is going on with Marcus and Kait, Baird is watching the feed of the robots at Fort Umson, so where they are trying to get to, or we're trying to get to. I guess they don't really see the point of them going back to Fort Umson now that they found the kids. But anyways, this is Kait's village, and they're throwing a lot of DBs and other, robots at it from a Condor, one of the big planes. And as soon as the DBs land, they're getting completely annihilated by the swarm that is there. The swarm has taken over Kait's village and killing anything that lands there, completely destroying the DBs with like zero chance of victory. And the village is just completely taken over, like to an extent that it's extremely dangerous to go there. So I don't know if Marcus and Kait and them are going to even go there anymore. If they do, that doesn't really sound like a great idea. And after Baird sees this, he gets pissed and he goes straight to Jin's office and he tells her, well, this isn't going to work. Why are we going there? Why are we sending DBs at, Fort Umson? Like basically telling her, we need to send people. We need to send actual good soldiers. These DBs aren't equipped to fight the swarm. And when he goes in there and barges in her office to tell her that, she's like, kind of like, yeah, you're right. Wait. And then she kind of gives him like a weird look like, how did you know that? That just happened like 10 minutes ago or something like that, like a really short time ago. And Baird's like, oh fuck. Because he wasn't supposed to not let her know that he had this ability to tap into the feeds. He was doing all this stuff secretly behind her back, and out of a fit of rage he completely forgot that she didn't know. So he walked in and basically exposed himself in a fit of rage by stating something that he knew that he shouldn't have known, at least not yet. So she's like, wait a second, so how long has this been going on? And she starts kind of accusing him and kind of prying him about what he's been doing. And then he messes up again because there's talking about, where Marcus and Kait might have went. And then he kind of, states, well, Marcus and Kait wouldn't have. And then she looks at him like, Marcus and Kait? So he messed up again and basically exposed himself a second time, knowing that he helped Marcus and Kait escape. So he pretty much laid it all out there and said, yeah, okay, I have been watching what you've been doing through my end, and I've been helping Marcus and Kait go to Fort Umson to try to save the children. And at first she's pissed, but she kind of digresses because she's like, kind of realizes like, wow, they don't trust me. They don't, believe that I can save the kids. So she kind of gets a little bit more of a self-pity type thing instead of getting angry at him. But then the argument kind of spirals out of control again, where Baird is saying we need to send people over there so we can take Fort Umson back, find Marcus and Kait and the kids, and just save everybody. And she's against it. She wants to send DBs, and Baird is basically saying the DBs aren't equipped to fight this enemy. They're not strong enough. They can't beat this monster. And she gets mad and screams and basically tells them, well, build me ones that are, like, gets all crazy and build me DBs that are strong enough to fight them. And they kind of just sit there in like an awkward silence. And while she's pissed, she kind of goes down to more of a sad state and tells them, this is why I wanted the DB program to be the way it was. I didn't want people to go out there. I didn't want to risk our best and brightest soldiers. And that's the reason why she was so critical about that. And she basically asks Baird, what do you think would happen if we find out that the war hero Marcus Phoenix died out there because of a new enemy? What kind of, horrible hit to morale would that be? And when she mentions the fact that he's a war hero, he's like, yeah, I know that better than anybody. And she goes, yeah, what about the, hit to the morale? He's like, once again, yeah, I know that. I'm the one that would know that the best. And they kind of just sit there in like awkward silence. And she goes, well, what would happen then? And he basically just tells her, well, we would have lost 2 of our best. And they just kind of sit there in sadness. And then Jin just tells Baird, alright, that's enough, Damon. And then that's just basically where the act ends. So we'll see what happens next with Marcus and Kait in the next video. The reason why I said next is because the next upcoming video is going to be talking about JD and Dell's perspective of this story at the same exact time. I don't feel like the next video will be as long. I'm really surprised that this video is as long as it is. I honestly thought it would be shorter, but it ended up being longer than the last one. It's just only half of this story for Act 2, but the second side of the story will be a lot shorter in my opinion. But yeah guys, if you guys like this video, please definitely hit that like button and subscribe, and tell me what you guys think about part A or part 1. I haven't really decided how I'm going to decide on it, of Act 2. And tell me what you guys think. If you guys like the novel, you like the story so far, are you interested, and are you excited for Gears 5? Anyways guys, thanks for watching guys, take it easy, and if you like this video, once again hit that notification bell so you can be notified anytime I make a video. Thanks for watching guys. Thanks for watching this video. If you want to see my most recent Gears of War video, hit that link on the left. If you want to see any of my other content, hit that link on the right. Thanks for watching guys.